Hello and welcome to Through Dangers Untold, a chapter-by-chapter breakdown of the classic fantasy film that is Labyrinth. I'm your host as always, Elwood Jones, and joining me, of course, and returning from her recent stint as a one-woman show, Ferngully, Now and Forever, it is, of course, the one and only Miss Emily Slade.
Hello!
Tonight we are talking about the Four Guards as we look at chapter 9 of the film. Obviously, on our previous episode, we had our fun song and dance moment, and that was a really fun episode. We were joined by Vicky, so thank you again for her to coming on and making a really, really fun episode. It was a great episode to record, and if you listen to these randomly out of order, go back and listen to that one especially, because that was a lot of fun to record.
And if you are listening to them out of order, why are you listening to them out of order? You absolute maverick.
You just think it's all like, oh, I really want to know a bit more about like what people think about like the worm sequence, and then they go to the worm chapter, and it's like, great, I can have a breakdown of the worm rather than having to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like
listen to a long form conversation. I'm
not trying to dampen your life choices. I can't imagine myself being put in such a position where I make such a bold, out of sorts move where I listen to a chapter by chapter breakdown out of sync like some sort of rogue. Like, power to you.
I can't like join a show when it's like 4 episodes in. I have to like start at the beginning. It's none of this watch it from now and everything that came before. It's like a prequel series. So.
Oh yeah, no. It's like how you see Kill Bill Volume 1 and The Fellowship of the Ring millions of times, and The Return of the King and Kill Bill Volume 2 like 3 times. Because every time you're like, I fancy some Kill Bill, you have to go back to the beginning.
Yeah. Get your Eastern. Because his Western didn't really work for me. And the story so far, as I said, we have just come off the tail end of Magic Dance. And as Sarah rounds the corner, you can still hear the strains of Magic Dance playing out over the valley and arches of the Labyrinth. And Sarah's confronted by the Four Guards, represented here by 2 shields with 2 guards holding each shield in a weird top-to-toe situation that I still don't understand.
It's like a card, isn't it? Like when you turn a card over and you look at the way the sort of jack is presented, where it's like top and tail, but with just sort of like a shield in the middle. It's a really interesting design. It's really cool, and they're like color-coded. And they invite her over, essentially, because she gets pissy, which is valid in the Labyrinth. And she's like, it's not fair, which is her catchphrase. Come on, feet. Stuck it in. And they're like, you're right, it's not fair. Or whatever. And she's like, well, this was a dead end a minute ago. So she tries to get help from them, which is her first mistake. She should have just walked away and carried on elsewhere. But she engages with them. And they do the classic, like, if you've ever read any sort of tween fantasy YA novel, if at any point your character is in peril or some sort of scholastic book that's in your school library, chances are they'll meet some sort of creature that riddles them in order to like cross a bridge or whatever. And this will often come up as the sort of culminating issue, like riddle thing. Like it'll be like, make 9 out of these 10 sticks and stuff. And then the last one will always be this riddle, where one of us always tells the truth and one of us always lies. And I mean, for the first time ever, I think I was really concentrating, and I think it made sense to me this time.
Okay.
Did it make sense to you?
Of course it didn't make sense to me. You've got a bunch of people babbling nonsense. They might as well be talking about the average wind speed of an eastern swallow. And this is classic Terry Jones here. It's sort of like someone who clearly loves a fantasy-esque riddle, and this was his opportunity to act. The characters themselves look like they're modelled on Terry Jones, for Christ's sake. You could see Terry Jones playing this sort of character, or John Cleese, perhaps. Just the way they snigger behind their shield and stuff. It kind of makes you want to just like push them over. It's not like they've got a sword or something behind there, does it?
And are they like a turtle, where their like skeleton is part of their shell, aka that they're sort of conjoined with this shield, or are they little creatures that are hiding behind a shield? Who knows? Are they like Siamese twins, or are they like 4 different creatures that just hang out together? Who knows?
They sort of found their calling, haven't they? I mean,
very much
if you're a conjoined twin, in this unfortunate position, and you have yourself a shield, I mean, there's not much else you can really do. I mean, you could be a table, I guess.
I think they've
draft
nailed it,
excluder. This is a pretty choice role.
The life choices are solid. I get it, and they're having a great time. So and again, this was another thing that when I watched it as a kid, I just thought was so charming and great because I'd never seen it in anything before. They're explaining their whole situation to Sarah, and they're like, there are 2 doors behind us. One of the doors leads to the next part of the labyrinth, and the other door leads to, and the other shield goes, bum 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 bum, certain death, and then they all go, ooh. And again, it's like one of these things that you come up with in a drama school rehearsal room, and someone throws it out for being too like far-fetched or whatever, but Jim Henson pulls it off, and it's so much fun because it's a great way to play down the real sort of peril. So if you're a child watching this, I mean, regardless, I know a lot of children were traumatized by it, whatever, but you know, you're not genuinely frightened that Sarah's about to go through a door and like get executed. Like
big
they're
guillotine
pretty
blade or
chill.
something.
yeah, it just comes down.
Yeah,
they're fairly chill about what's behind the door.
I never even considered like the actual doom that may be facing her. They're all, even now when I watch it, I never see it as being any sort of real peril. But the way that they're describing the situation is very sort of like of this sort of genre. I mean, whenever you have someone like explain that there's going to be some sort of doom or whatever, whether it be like a big dragon or a ferocious chicken, there's many things to be afraid of in the medieval world, and it's always the crowd of the superstitious villagers, which essentially these guys represent, and they're always like, ooh, and because they're there just to create the atmosphere, because this is something that they bought into. And the fact that the fact that they've come up with this whole thing just to mess with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like did they know themselves what they protect, or is it just a situation where they think, you know what, we're gonna be like everyone else in this labyrinth and just screw with people,
just fuck it up, because like we meet some doors later on and they've got no idea what's behind them, so how do these guys know?
Well, they are door knockers, they don't it's not like they can go
true,
anywhere.
but like, you know, how long have these guys been posted here? How long, you know, is this their first day on the job? Because what's really fun as well is that when Sarah's like, I need to get through one of the doors, how do I know which is which, like which one leads to sudden death? And they're like, we can't tell you that. No, we can't tell you that. We can't tell you that. And she's like, okay, what can you tell me then? And they're like, you can't ask us, you can only ask one of us. Yes, only ask one of us. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, she can only ask one of us. That's hilarious. What else? Yeah, and one of us tells the truth, and one of us always lies. Like they're making it up as they go along, and they're like giggling about it. They're like teenage girls, where you're like, you've caught them doing something, and you're like, what are you doing? And they're like, miss, no, miss, we were we were like, we were just talking about the current affairs, miss. And you're like, were you? Because it looks like you were about to set her hair on fire. Like, it's that sort of like, they're just making it up on the spot because this is their like first day on the job, and they're like, what are we meant to do? Jareth told us to just be like facetious and weird, so I guess we'll do this. But it's really fun. It gives that sort of not knowing what to expect, because even the doors don't really know what's going on. And then they do the classic, one of us only tells the truth, one of us always lies. Then they play around with that for a bit. So then Sarah, she figures it out very quickly, which is probably a good thing, because otherwise we would have been here for ages, where she's like, okay, would he tell me that this door leads to certain death? And he thinks about it and he's like, yes. And she's like, right, so the other door is the one to go, or whatever it is. And it's because oh God, does this door lead to the labyrinth? And the answer is yes. So if the guy that just said yes was telling the truth, the guy that told me... Wait. Help! The guy, like, would he tell me that this door led to the labyrinth? And the guy she asked said yes. So, according to you, he would say that this door leads to the labyrinth. If he was lying, aka no, you would have to tell the truth, so the answer would be yes. But if he was telling the truth, so the answer would be no, you would have to lie, in which case the answer is still yes. So the other door leads to the labyrinth. I never could do it before. I think I'm getting smarter. Genuinely, that's the first time that's properly made sense to me.
I'm glad that it makes sense. It's like someone trying. It was like watching someone try and peel an orange in their pocket. Watching you go through that.
It was long. It was arduous.
I really want to eat this orange, but I don't want to share it with any of you. So, that's what it felt like anyway. But yeah, so she sells the thing, and then she's like, "Come on, feet," and
Come
obviously,
and I love it. I love the confidence. She's like, no, it's right, because they're like, how do you know? And she explains how she knows, and she's like, no, it's right, I figured it out. Like, she has a real confidence and self-esteem boost, and she's like, I could never do it before, I think I'm getting smarter. Which of course then probably is why the floor opens up beneath her, because it was like, hey now, you watch that attitude, Missy. Stop getting so confident in your own ability. And she falls through the floor.
There's so many scenes, like, as we break this down, I kind of just want to see what happens, like, 5 minutes after. Like,
yeah, I want to go back to where we've just come from.
She falls through the hole, and it's like, well, what do these guys do now? What conversation do they have before?
Do they have to shut the door behind her?
Yeah. When magic dance ends, does someone try and start like another song? And they're like, no, we're done with this now.
Yeah. Someone's like, 1, 2, and Jareth is like, if you say 3, I will kill you on the spot.
And it also, the fact that this is, the more characters we meet, you realise that Hoggle is the only person with an actual sense of purpose who knows what he's supposed to be doing. Everyone else that she encounters have been given jobs, but they don't know why they're doing them.
Yeah,
the people the door knockers, the 4 guards, no clue. Sir Didymus, why are you guarding this bridge? Because it's my duty.
Yeah. It's true.
And it's like the false warnings. Yeah, it's like the false warnings. Who are you warning for? And it's just your own amusement. Whereas when you look at Hoggle, he's like got jobs, he's got a cupboard, he's got his own things happening. I think the cleaners, I guess, have got a purpose, but they're kind of just summoned.
And has everything just sort of been thrown up up for Sarah's arrival, or do they sit there for years waiting for someone to come and try and make their way through the door? Or do they get to do they go home is this their day job? Do they go home at night, or do they live here guarding the door with a shield? Or do they knock off at, like, if it was 5 p.m. and Sarah was like, well, which door leads to the labyrinth? They'd be like, sorry, love, my shift's over. I'm off. Mrs. is waiting. See ya. And then she's just like, oh.
They just put some wheels on the front and just roll on out there. I'm off for a meat pie. This is the problem, because it being, filmed in England and Henson being such an Anglophile, like, the amount of British sort of styled characters in this, you just assume that everyone is British in this, the same way that you assume everyone in fantasy is from the south, because they don't normally speak with a Cornish accent, unless you're in Game of Thrones, where it's a northern accent.
Yes,
so
from the north. The north remembers. Yeah.
As flawed as that series was, it was still a journey.
A long, winding journey with a terrible, terrible end.
Yeah, that was a film why we don't hang around scenes 5 minutes after the end. Yeah. Or 30 minutes after the end, of the case of Game of Thrones. Yeah. It's why action scenes are shot the way they are. Instead of just going on forever as you would want as a child. Yeah, I think, again, this is another example. There's so many, when we look at the Labyrinth, it's not a series of challenges or places for us to visit. This is a living, breathing thing. We want to spend time with these characters, and whether we want to face these problems or not is another thing entirely. But, you look at a scene, you're like, oh, I really want to explore this. Like, when we get a bit later into this, and we're in the sort of marbly area where we find Ludo. And it's like, oh, I really want to go and explore this area. And these characters, as I said...
Yeah, sorry.
You understand why they all appear in Sarah's bedroom at the end, because she, like us, just needs them. And we need these characters, as useless as they may be. It's
as
nice
they
to
may
still...
seem to be.
Well, as soon as they seem to be. They are rocking the choices that have been given to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I would rate this as like one of my favourite scenes. It's a fun challenge, I guess.
Yeah,
and
it's
I think
very
the characters
fun.
are
It's
pretty
very
charming.
Classic. It's like a tropey trope. I love the design of the guards. They're really fun. I love the voices and the way that they sort of the way they're quite vibrant. Like when we compare, like every character in the Labyrinth has a different energy. The worm who we've met was so chill. And then your mother is a freaking aardvark guy is like rage zombie, the high energy. And then these guys are like children. They're like yeah, tell her this, which is really, really fun. And as we go through, we're going to meet all of these different energies that may or may not fit with their surroundings, which is why it's such a fun place to be, because it's just like, I don't know what's going to be around the corner. And yeah, it's a very simple little moment that is just a bit fantasy tropey, I guess. It's also more less original, as a lot of the Labyrinth is, I guess.
It also stands up to the close-up test, because there's a shot of one of their faces where it's clearly thinking, and that is no easy thing to do with a puppet. The same way that we have Ludo when he puts like the door knocker in his mouth. And you look at it, it's like, God, this is a living thing. This isn't a puppet. I mean, you can see the gears churning away in its head. Of like, oh, this is not what we expected. We had the whole, door of death spiel worked out for you. And it's like, now you're turning it on us. And it's all like, well, how do I, like, not give the answer? How do I still keep my job at the end of the day? I mean... It's a mere look at the thing. If they remove the top guy and just have the bottom guy, that's going to be awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like...
Oh, where's Dave? Oh, he was fired. You let that girl go through the wrong door. Oh, shit.
Yeah. He gave away the puzzle.
Yeah.
You had one job to do, which was to guard the door and just make it as complex as possible. I mean, maybe this is the thing, because they don't see more people, so this is their way of dragging out human interaction.
Yeah,
just
they're
by
probably like
wasting people's time.
And we don't know what's behind either door. Were the two doors going to lead to the same place always? Were both of the doors going to lead to parts of the labyrinth where the flagstone just disappears under her feet? Was one of the doors going to lead to the gaping mouth of a monster? Was one of the doors going to lead to a full-on guillotine? Was one of the doors going to lead straight back to the beginning of the labyrinth? Like...
Yeah, you're just making me think of a sand lion now. That's really scary.
Yeah.
Ooh. And a sand lion only gets scarier when you look at one full on.
Yeah.
Weird things Richard's scared of.
I think it's fairly valid.
It's horrific when you look at a sand lion in nature's movies. It's just terrifying. And then you see what's under the sand, and it's like, God, it's even worse. So, but yeah, I've got nothing else to say.
Yeah, it's a short, sweet little scene. I think there's not really much to go in once you've figured out the puzzle, and there's no sort of debate around that. There's not really much to say. It's lovely. I love seeing the puppets up close. I love their design. They've got these like really creepy hands. But a very, very short scene.
So, with that, our journey continues. Make sure you join us next time as we meet the Helping Hands. But until next time, thank you as always to my co-host Emily.
Woo!
And I said we will be back next time to talk about the Helping Hands. But until then, good night.